Welcome back and a very good morning to you. We're continuing following the developing story and, of course, further reactions in regards to the deportation of NASA activist, that is Miguna. Remember that the High Court had actually ordered that he be presented today at about 11 a.m. Certainly that is not going to happen after reports that he was deported to Canada. Now, the Interior Ministry has actually spoken and said that Miguna denounced his citizenship years back. Spokesperson Mwenda Njoka says the lawyer never bothered to reclaim it as stipulated by the law. However, according to lawyer Danson Omari, a bit of the articles of 14 and 16 of the Constitution are simply contradicting themselves, because Article 16 simply says that a Kenyan one cannot lose their citizenship, especially if they're born in the country. Therefore, that sort of contradicts Article 14 and the previous Constitution as well. So we shall keep you up to speed in regards to that. Let's find out what Professor Macharia Monene thinks about this. Professor Macharia Monene is a writer and, of course, a political analyst who joins us now by way of phone. Professor, your immediate reactions about the deportation of Miguna and what it means?
Yeah, it is an interesting development, and it raises a real big question. Miguna is not an issue here. The question is, how does a country protect itself from divided loyalties? When you have the challenge of dual citizenship, people have no allegiance to particular countries, and they can easily shortchange or even betray particular one country in favor of the other. So it is a more serious question than the person of Miguna or any other person. It's something that needs to be looked at as a national issue, as opposed to just one person.
Perhaps, Professor, does this, given the kind of different reactions we're seeing online and even speaking to people on the streets, does this actually point out to lack of understanding about citizenship in general? What does it make you think about that?
Well, there is general confusion about not only citizenship but also obligations to that citizenship.
Yes.
And there's a whole discussion about national interest, about how a country can protect itself. Survivability of a state is an issue, and the kind of the general education, the civic education that needs to go around in the country with regard to obligations of citizens to their country. And then along with that, then you can explore the challenge of dual citizenship. Where does the loyalty lie? Is it in one country or the other? And when there is confusion or threat, how is it to be dealt with? In the case of Miguna, is he a Canadian or is he Kenyan?
Professor,
so that those kind of things come up, and then the decisions have to be made by the people responsible.
Professor, some might argue that the loyalty, when it comes to citizenship, lies at your country of birth, lies with the country of birth, your birth. What do you think?
Well, it's a good argument. Usually it carries a little more weight. But when you have divided loyalty and people choose that their loyalty should be in countries other than the ones of their birth, you have a problem. We also have Kenyans who are born outside Kenya, yet they are Kenyans. So if you emphasize the country of their birth, then you have that issue. Exactly where is the loyalty of the person himself. And that each country has to determine that, depending on the circumstances.
So because this...
not just a theoretical thing.
So because, Professor, because this squarely lies at the doorstep of the Department of Immigration, what options do they have in terms of enlightening the citizens?
They should, I think, spend a little more money explaining the obligations, the expectations, the responsibility. I think the immigration has not done a very good job of enlightening the people. And maybe there needs to be massive campaign to let the people know their responsibility, their expectations, and the issue of loyalty to this country.
And speaking,
where is your loyalty?
And speaking of,
they need to do something better than that.
Okay. And Professor, before I let you go finally, speaking of loyalty, could this be perhaps one of the reasons why the passports of some of NASA's top leadership was revoked yesterday?
Yeah. I need to know more about that development since I'm not privy to it.
Okay.
So, but the decisions made by those responsible for the welfare of the country is the one that should be looked into. Okay. The circumstances under which they made that decision.
Okay, thank you.
But I'm not in a position to second guess them.
Okay, thank you very much. Professor Macharia Munene is a scholar. He's also a columnist as well as a political analyst. He joins us here quite often. And he brings about a very valid question that I'd like my next panel to take on. I'm speaking this morning, during this second part, to political analyst Philip Chimwigut. We have Steve Ogutu, as well as gender activist and political analyst Catherine Amanyo. Thank you very much for joining us. Ladies first. Professor Macharia Munene argues and is simply putting to question, where does your loyalty lie if you have dual citizenship? In this case, let's talk about Miguna.
I would love to point out that sometimes when people are promoted to the kitchen, they burn the house. I think Miguna's issue could have been handled in Kenya and quietly or just ignored, because whatever he's been through for the last 6 days was enough for somebody to learn if he was on their own. But I think Professor is right. The loyalty, if the pivot point, the leverage should be on where you were born and raised. And for Miguna's case, he's Kenyan. Whether they twist and turn technically the constitution to befit their explanations, Miguna was not convicted yet. Justice Kimaru was still waiting for him at Milimani Law Courts, and they decided to deport him. I don't know which law they used in between that time, because we were expecting Miguna at the court and see what Justice Kimaru had
Catherine,
to say.
In the eyes of the state, Miguna is a man who does not recognize the legitimacy of the current government. He further goes on to, to be part of, an oath-taking for swearing in someone who then says he is the people's president.
Yeah, he has a right also to have his own opinion, and I respect each one's opinions. I think for him not to recognize the source is well known. When justice is delayed, it is denied. And sometimes people are pushed to do some things to wake up others who are still asleep. So he was just fighting for his right. Liberation is not a trail of roses. So as he did that, if somebody is in authority, there are other means you can silence somebody. But Miguna's case, they have approached a mosquito by a mallet to kill. But I think he will revive.
Philip, what do you think? Peter. Yes. Sorry. I do apologize for that. Peter Chimwigut is your name. What do you think about the whole situation and how it has been handled? And the main question that we are tackling, and that is, where does loyalty lie in case you have dual citizenship?
The whole question, Wafula, is all about patriotism. All over the world, your country comes first. And when your country comes first, what happens is you do not do things which actually could bring problems to your country. Let's just go back a little bit. One of the IEBC commissioners, Akombe, she could do things actually which you will point that, this issue with patriotism, because she knows very well that she has citizens somewhere. So she will do things because, she's not loyal to a bad country because, she has citizens somewhere. So this is a trend which we are actually seeing a lot, people who have dual citizenship. They tend to care less. Patriotism is not there, and loyalty. So in my opinion, I believe actually Miguna has been a little bit careless to the extent where he can do things the way, he knows very well that I have a second home or I have first home. So in my opinion, I think really it's all about balancing the issue of loyalty, patriotism. That's the best keyword I can use.
Okay. What about you, Steve? How do you look at it?
Well, I think we all know where all this emanates from. On the 1st of February, Miguna called a press conference, and he declared himself, even before that, he declared himself the NRM leader, so to speak. And he went ahead to utter certain things that didn't go well with the government. And so the government is now viewing him as a threat, as somebody who's taking part in an outfit that is seen to be, according to the government, dividing the country, and not being loyal to the government of the day and disrupting the development agenda of the government and all that. And so seeing what is happening, it's not a surprise. And but I had an issue about how he was handled, how he was arrested. It wasn't such a decent way of doing arrest, bombing, the police bombing their way into his compound and all that, and him being detained without really, he was detained and held in Comunado, and being transferred into so many police stations and all that. So a lot of his rights, even as an arrested person, were not respected. And in that respect, I think that wasn't right. We saw a lot of disrespect and disregard to the rule of law, which the government really pledges to uphold. And I think...
Okay, but then, Steve, perhaps tell us how you'd like to see Miguna being handled.
I know, just like any other person, the charges against him, like I said, we all know where all this started. It's not really new to me and you or to any Kenyans. And so I believe that if at all the government really wanted to handle this issue when Miguna is still in the country, they would have done it because they have all the instruments. They have all the instruments of power. We have a very capable judiciary here and all that. We saw how Judge Kimaru has come out very strongly and just trying to show how independent the judiciary is. He's given like 3 court orders, about 3 court orders, none of those was respected and all that. And so I would have expected Miguna to be taken through the due process of the law, and that wasn't followed. So in that respect, I think there was a mismatch in terms of how the government handled the whole situation.
We shall talk about that some more. Right now I'm joined by Dr. Duncan Ojwang by way of phone. Dr. Ojwang is also a qualified lawyer and also understands, matters immigration, on international law, actually. So, Dr. Ojwang, the question that I'd simply asked Danson Omari, what then happens should Miguna get to Toronto get to Canada, and he does not want to get off the plane? What options does Canada have here?
Right, that is possible, but less likely because he had already boarded the plane. So Dan Omari, I think, is just fishing a little bit,
but then,
because you can't accept to board the plane or whatever and then refuse to live there in Canada.
But
so it's a very unlikely situation. And in case that plane, maybe let's say it's moving to China, so should it now boarding to China, most likely be removed from the plane.
But then
that is not a problem. Maybe he should say if he refuses to leave the airport, because airport usually, for people who don't have citizenship, they can be stuck in the airport for long, but not so much on the plane. You know that the plane, once it's on air, then it carries the citizenship of that country. And most likely, it is almost impossible to deport Miguna to Canada if the Canadian government is not involved or have not authorized this thing. So I think it is fair to assume that the Canadian government is willing.
And Dr. Ojwang, your understanding of international, law, under what circumstances is one deported from a country? Just take us through the kind of scenarios.
Okay, we have. So under which scenario? But even if you allow me, before I answer that, we have what we call dominant citizenship for people with dual citizenship. And Dan Omari and anybody who have been to law school understand the Nottebohm case
that when somebody has dual citizenship, then we look for which one is the dominant citizenship. In Nottebohm case, Nottebohm was a citizen of both countries.
Okay.
And so when you are a dual citizen, then even for your country to intervene, which we are calling prescriptive jurisdiction of country, then we have to determine which one is your dual citizen, which one is your dominant citizenship. And it is based on where do you have more connection, where do you have whatever, and probably we could argue it is Kenya. But for strategy for the government, remember Miguna was to be produced in court because of the power of the right of habeas corpus, the right to produce the person to court. That right, I doubt that it extends when somebody is not in the jurisdiction of Kenya. So that for Mali to say that that right of habeas corpus produced Miguna, that yes, that right is only relevant if Miguna is in Kenya. But if it's not in Kenya, that is in another jurisdiction, I don't think the right of habeas corpus, the right to produce Miguna to court, still extend to Canada, because now it's not in Kenya. And then the issue of, and so again, when it comes to dual citizenship, we consider which one is the dominant citizenship, and that could be an argument whether where does he have more ties? Is it Canada or is it Kenya? But more or else, it is almost impossible for Kenya to deport him if they didn't have diplomatic agreement with Canada, because obviously, for obvious reason, Canada might reject. Now, if Canada reject to take him,
okay, Dr. Jong,
is most unlikely.
Dr. Jong,
and Kenya have also deported him. Then at that time, there are people who have been stuck in the airport for even months because no country is able to or willing to claim them. I doubt that is the case. Now, when it comes to the issue of dual citizenship and the article
Dr. Zhuang,
citizens by birth.
I don't know whether he can hear me, but Dr. Zhuang, one final question. I think my mic was off. But one final question before I let you go on the question about can the state actually take the action of deporting someone, or does it actually require an order from the court?
I think ordinarily it will require, and Dan Omari gave us a scenario where those people are to be deported to ICC, and court was weighing in because of their right as citizens.
Yeah.
I think as much as possible, it is an issue that is affecting his right, the right of a citizen within Kenya, including the right to enjoy and freedom of movement. So I think that court should have been involved in that case, whether he should be deported or not. But be as it may, now that he has been deported and you are a judge in Kenya within the sovereign land of Kenya, then there is very little you can do apart from now maybe jailing or reprimanding those who have deported him, because your jurisdiction does not extend to Canada. So for them to say that they can order him back from Canada, I don't think that can happen.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Drong, for that. And of course, Dr. Drong is a lawyer and very experienced on matters international law. He says, you can all react to this. Let me start with you, Catherine, that the dominant citizenship is the one that should matter, and perhaps in a way, loyalty should lie to that.
Yes, that's our son, born and raised, no question.
Yeah.
And I think even if he went to Canada and he has nothing to do there, he will come back home. I think even for him to have gone for gubernatorial seat, he has a vision for Kenya. Okay. And because he's very sad, because we fought for so much, and yet it's like we are retracking, going backwards 30 years. And if he's a real, liberator, he won't sit back. Having dual citizenship is a merit, because living in Canada, a country that is 100 years ahead of Kenya, he must have learned a lot and borrowed a leaf from there. And I think he wants to also do that in Kenya. But unfortunately, because of injustices, bribery, corruption, some of these good brains that we have in Kenya cannot implement what the vision, the manifesto, the ideologies they have for the nation, which is so unfortunate.
Do you think there's perhaps more misunderstanding about dual citizenships among the general public? Because, some are terming him as a traitor or not so patriotic for, having dual citizenship.
In the heat of the moment,
yes,
they will judge harshly,
okay,
depending on which side they are looking at the spectrum.
Okay.
But if you were to look at Miguna's approach of issues, he might be a bit harsh, a bit cruel,
yeah,
a bit rowdy, and being a bit forceful.
Okay.
For the normal Kenyan mwananchi Wanjiku, I think Miguna has a vision for Kenya.
Okay, hold on. Peter, that the dominant citizenship is what should prevail.
I think the
here.
issue of dominance should be really reviewed because let's just use examples. Republic of China and United States. When you have their citizenship, what happens is you cannot really, take the other country, like for example, if you have a citizenship of China and you have a citizenship of, for example, North Korea. For them, as an issue like Miguna, it will be a very serious issue where somebody actually will be killed. Their rules are very, very strict. The same with United States. And I believe Kenya law is a little bit gray. It's not really clear the way you will deal with this because actually patriotism, your country comes first. I go back again, Miguna, Akombe, they have dual citizenship. And in my best opinion, I think, they are not putting Kenya #1. They are putting Canada #1. And for Akombe, she's putting USA #1. But for Americans who are born in the United States or for the Chinese,
so
they put their country first.
Are you questioning our patriotism largely as a country?
Yes, I'm questioning their patriotism, yes.
Their patriotism.
Yes.
Steve, your take. And I know Catherine has a response to that.
But I want to disagree with him to some extent, When I think Miguna, just being objective, I'm not trying to hold brief for anybody. Miguna has been, very, okay, when you look at the dominant citizenship concept, he served in the government of Mwai Kibaki,
yes,
as an advisor to the PM. He's contested for gubernatorial position and all that, So he's been so much involved into the matters of the country in a span of 10 plus years.
So I know you're alluding to the question, why is he now being treated as a Canadian citizen?
That's right. And for me, I think he's more of a Kenyan citizen than a Canadian citizen.
What about the fact that he did not denounce, or rather he did not reclaim his citizenship as stipulated by the law?
That is not clear.
Yeah.
I think I was listening when the lawyer Danson was speaking here.
Yeah.
And he also said that is not so clear, whether he denounced, yes, he denounced it, and whether he reapplied for it, that is not so clear. But the manner in which, my question would be, why then did they allow him to even contest for the position of a governor in Nairobi, or hold such high government positions, an advisor to
if he was not a Kenyan citizen?
If he was not a Kenyan citizen.
Okay.
So that's a question that really needs to be addressed.
Yeah, it's a breach in the Constitution.
Yeah.
Because we have stayed with Miguna, if nobody told me he had dual citizenship, I had no clue that he was also Canadian. So what we are talking here is when does the Constitution matter in the Kenyan scenario? I think looking at both sides of the coin, somehow Miguna's vision should be heard. Sometimes when you keep suppressing and oppressing and making people not let what is disturbing them come out well, even if he went and said, yes, I'm the general in an NRM, I think they are dealing with sideshows and beating around the bush. If really the government really wants to play patriotic more than any other Kenyan, then they should go to Raila and arrest him. Because Miguna, to me, was a flower boy around the wedding.
So what is your final take on matters Miguna? Because I'm giving each of you a minute so that we can take a short commercial break.
We want Miguna back so he can let us know what he thinks of Kenya. Okay. I believe he loves Kenya.
Perhaps he's already communicated what he thinks of Kenya. Peter, your final take on matters Miguna?
My word about Miguna is try this in China or try this in America. You'll be dead.
Okay. Steve?
My take is, I think it would be so nice to have him back and tried within his motherland. Yeah.
Okay. We're taking a short commercial break. When we come back, Kalonzo Musyoka spoke yesterday. He said the swearing-in plans are still going on, and he definitely gave his reasons why. He did not appear before rather during the event that was on the January 30th. That was NASA's swearing-in. We shall be talking about also the future of Wiper and, to the larger extent, NASA as well. Stay tuned.